Hey everybody, welcome back to Conscientious Omnivore. My name is Pal. Today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about mulch, and I'm going to be talking about waste. And I've done videos before about how I made mulch from collecting a bunch of Christmas trees that were put out after the holidays, and that turned out quite well so far. But I definitely need more mulch, and what's happening now is we have a yard waste collection happening today, and so for the past week or so people have been putting out all their yard waste and prunings and clippings, and what I've been doing is slowly but surely collecting a bunch, and I actually have some more that I have to bring over from my in-laws place, but I've got a bunch of prunings and also a few bags worth of leaves and just basically raked up or cut up into small little pieces like twigs and stuff. And I'm going to be renting a chipper, and I'm going to be mulching all of this material down, and I'm going to be making another vegetable bed with it, and I'll show you guys that in a future video. But what I want to talk today about is a little bit kind of related to veganism and its environmental impact. And I also want to dispel some myths that people seem to be propagating, especially in the kind of raw meat, primal diet, paleo diet kind of communities, about grass-fed animals and pasture-raised animals. So yeah, I want to just dispel some of those myths for you guys, and also just for anybody who's doing any kind of gardening, I want to talk about the importance of mulch and why you want to keep all of your yard waste. It's not waste. It's actually a very valuable resource that you can use. And yeah, I want to talk about that. So let's get into it. So here's one example that I wanted to show. It's not even the end of April yet here. So we're not even into the peak summer months. And any of the exposed ground already has cracks in it. So I haven't been watering this. This is just part of our lawn here. And granted, this is probably one of the more sunny spots in the yard, especially during the day. It's really early morning right now, so the sun hasn't risen high enough yet to come over the hill behind me. But you can see that part is going to be sunny, but this part will be sunny too. And some of the problems with not having ground cover is just that your dirt just dries out, man. It's so hard to keep good soil if you're not keeping it moist. It just becomes dried out dirt like this. So I just want to contrast this with some of the other areas where we have much more ground cover, and especially where some of the weedy areas are, because I think it's really telling, and you guys will see what I mean, what the difference is. And I also want to add that this morning it's been really cool. I think it was 5 degrees Celsius, so that's, I don't know, whatever that is, but maybe 50 something in Fahrenheit. And we even had a little bit of dew on the grass, and the dirt is still looking this dry. So just bear that in mind too. And it's, like I said, April. So compare that to this section, where this part's even in the sun right now, and this is one of the more sunny spots too, but you have a lot more grass development here and a lot better cover. And if you go in here, I'm going to try to find a bare spot. Here we go. Look at the bare spot of soil here. Just because it's already covered by the by the grass, you can actually see that it's just that much less dry. I mean, it's still pretty dry, don't get me wrong, but it's nowhere near as bad as over there, where I just showed you. There's no cracks in it. Here's another little section with no grass. It's just because everything shades it, so the wind doesn't dry it, the sun doesn't hit it quite as strongly, and it makes a huge difference. Now I'm going to show you another spot where the grass is even taller and there's weeds. So this section, the grass is definitely a lot taller. I haven't mowed here. There's definitely some weeds here. There's some wildflowers growing out here, and you just kind of dig down into here, and you can see that the dirt is just, the soil's alive. It's got a lot more life to it, and it's black for the most part between here. you know. So, and I haven't watered this part either, you know, just to be clear about that as well. So you can just see what a huge difference it makes to keep things covered. And this is what Masanobu Fukuoka talks about in his book, what Sepp Holzer talks about, what all the permaculture guys talk about, that you need ground cover, plowing, and ripping up the soil, and just just plowing in general just destroys the chance for moisture retention until you get a cover crop in there. And again, you can see this by just driving around, like by a field that's just been freshly plowed. You'll see that it's nice and dark when it's been done, and then basically 1 or 2 days later, after the sun's been hitting it, it's just dry. It looks like super light colored, and it just doesn't look healthy anymore. You can see this, just from your own experience. Look at any spot in your own yard where it's heavily traveled, or the grass is trampled down, or if you're going across a field like, at a university or a park, where people just walk. They just trample out the vegetation. What happens to the dirt underneath? It just becomes super dry and cracked. And look at, the amount of moisture that's on the leaves here. The more of this vegetation that there is, the more the dew can kind of settle on that, and kind of slowly but surely throughout the day drip back down. Well, or some of it will evaporate, obviously, but some of it will be used by the plants, and further, improve the quality of the soil. Okay, so what does this have to do with veganism and with waste and with mulch? Basically, the mulch, the recommendation I'm making is to basically use that as ground cover. So you're going to have your plants growing out of the soil that you are focused on trying to grow, and then you surround them with mulch. It kind of achieves the same purpose as the ground cover, in keeping the water retention and protecting the soil from the sun and the wind and erosion. But it also gives the plants insulation, so you can potentially extend your growing season, and it also provides nutrients to the soil, because over time the wood chips break down and kind of go back and turn back into soil, all the microbes and worms and bacteria and everything that's in there in the soil working to break that down. So that's one thing. And the other thing is that you have to think of things as a system. So what people often don't realize when they're looking at the inefficiencies of animal agriculture is they're not taking into account all the inputs and outputs of a given system. When you talk in engineering terms about a system, you have to kind of draw the edges of what you define to be the system that you're considering. And unfortunately, what happens in modern, factory farming, animal agriculture, is that you can take, outputs from one area, like say corn, soy grown in the Amazon that they've cut down forests for, and then you ship that to another system, which it might be, some grassland in America or Europe, and they're going to feed that output from one area to the input of the next area, which is the animals, and the animals, of course, are then slaughtered and eaten. And if you only look at one area and don't consider the effects of the output from the other area, you can really easily distort either the price, the true cost, or the actual impact to the environment, because you're only looking at your little area instead of the whole big picture. And the reason I bring that up is that, as I say, people are looking at the prunings and the cuttings from their yard as waste, and they're throwing it out. It's going to get processed, at some, hopefully like a composting facility from the city or someplace like that, and then, they will basically sell you back, good quality, compost or soil, and then you can use that to replenish the stuff that you have willingly or unwittingly, cut out from your trees or bushes or shrubs or what have you, and then bring those to the curb. So this is why I'm saying that in the thumbnail of the video that you're being scammed, because what people are inherently doing is that from your soil, these plants are bringing up nutrients from deep down. They're being pruned and cut, that is organic matter that's come out of your property. You're putting it to the curb, somebody's taking it away, processing it for you, and then over time your soil quality degrades. And then you have to either come in with either fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, or manures, or soil or compost or some other method. And what I'm saying is that you could just as easily either chip it yourself or bring in other chips from other areas, or just let things compost and decompose in your own backyard in a compost pile or a bin, or one of these rotating compost bins or what have you. And I, of course, with veganism, encourage everybody to go and look at the movies like Cowspiracy or other environmental films that show you the environmental impact of consuming animal products. But what I like to do in my approach whenever I talk to people about things like even for health, I tell people to watch, and learn from, doctors like Dr. McGregor, Dr. McDougall, but I think I said his name wrong. Anyway, it's Dr. Greger, not Mick Greger. Sorry if I did say that wrong. I'm a bit tired. But anyway, if you listen to these people, you don't, some people will argue and they'll say they're biased. You don't want to trust them, what have you. And I tell people you don't have to trust them. Go get out, go to your pharmacy and buy a cholesterol meter, a cholesterol reading meter, and just do an experiment for yourself. If you're currently eating animal products, do an experiment. 2-3 weeks, go on these crazy carnivore, raw meat, whatever you want, diets. Take a baseline measurement, see if your cholesterol gets better or worse. And, do that for 2-3 weeks. Take a measurement again. Then go on a whole food plant-based diet for 3 weeks and see what your cholesterol is going to do then. It's like, don't take my word for it. Don't take the word of these doctors. If you're confused by all the studies and you don't understand the studies, you don't have to understand them. Just go do this and you'll see who's telling the truth. It's really that simple. And with the environmental thing, I know a lot of people are confused by this because they listen to one, PhD doctor on the, talking head news program say that, climate change is not real and it's made up, and you have the other guy saying the exact opposite, and he's just as, seemingly smart, and you don't know who to trust. And my thing is like, don't believe people. Don't listen to people telling you that, the grass-fed, pasture raised meat is sustainable. And if you don't trust me and you don't trust people, who put out these documentaries, go and, find somebody who's keeping backyard chickens. Go look at what the ground looks like after you have the chickens in an area. Go look at somebody who has a goat and look at what the area looks like after they're done grazing with it for a while. Look at the same thing with sheep. Now, I happen to live in an area where there are a lot of people who keep backyard chickens, and I know like one of them, nearby to where we live, for whatever reason, I think they've slaughtered all their chickens, and their yard went from like total, almost like, clay, like sand, not a blade of grass, super dry, cracked in the summer, like trees were dying out. It went from that to super lush, green, beautiful, yard in one season. It's like they got rid of the chickens, and the next season that's what happened. And I'm going to actually link in a couple videos in the description here that I really recommend everybody to check out. They are basically a series of presentations that were done, I believe, at the UN, or may have been the European Union. I can't remember exactly, but anyway, I'll have it in the description. And there was it's really worthwhile to watch the whole thing, but I'm going to link in a shorter section as well, which was just one of the presenters. His name is Sailesh Krishna Rao. I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name 100% correct, but I'll have the link. And he does a fantastic job of explaining kind of the loss of biodiversity from animal agriculture, and all the waste that goes into it, why it's inefficient, and all this kind of stuff. And then he also shows pictures, which I'm going to insert here. So this first picture, it shows, from up until about 10,000 years ago, how much megafauna there was. So basically, these are animals that are over, I think it was 25 kilograms, basically like large animals. on the earth, and how much of the the total megafauna was from humans. And then it basically shows like what we have now, which you can see that the wild animals are just a tiny fraction of what they were. Humans have become more than twice what the total wild animals were previously, and then on top of that there are that many more things of farmed animals. So you can see the circles there are representative of all these things. And this really just again goes to show you how hypocritical it is for people who support animal agriculture, where they tell you like, oh, these vegans, they want to get rid of animal agriculture, you're going to be like making these animals extinct. It's actually totally illogical, because the only reason why the animals are there are because people are breeding them and artificially inseminating them and breeding them into huge numbers. And if you really were concerned about biodiversity and keeping around animals and making sure they don't go extinct, then you would be worried about the wild animals, because that's where you have the genetic diversity. All the farmed animals, for the most part, throughout the world, tend to be the same type. They tend to be the exact same ones that people have bred and genetically altered to have specific qualities that people find desirable, either from the standpoint of how quickly they grow, or whether they're docile or what have you. So that goes counter to that, and again it's interesting and you can look at it, but my main point for this video is that he also shows what an area looks like if you simply stop grazing animals. So this first picture that I'm showing you is a pasture area from 2002, and he wants to make it clear, like, what happens, you just stop grazing animals, this is what it looks like in 2006. So 4 years later, this is what the previous photo, which was pretty much like almost like a desert, it now looks like this. So again, you don't trust me, you don't trust this guy, you don't have to. Go out and find somebody who is doing the backyard animal husbandry, and you're gonna see this. You're gonna see what I just told you guys and showed you in my yard. Look in your own yard, look at where people walk. Animals being kept on a pasture do not do the land any favors. All these people who try to tell you otherwise, they are trying to sell you something. And it's just like, again, don't take my word for it, go out and look for yourself. If you don't believe what you see, try keeping animals yourself, as unvegan as that is for me to tell anybody to do. If you're eating meat now, I think it would be great if you kept your own animals, for a couple of reasons. One is that most people won't be able to kill the animals themselves, and even if you are, previously I had helped slaughter animals when I was a meat eater. Not very many, but certainly I took part in it, and some people will have no problems with that. But again, that may stop a few people. That's one thing. And the other thing is that even if the animals are being killed, they probably are getting a much better life than the 99% of the animals that are factory farmed. So that's number two. And number three is that you will come face to face and be forced to come to terms with the fact that it is more inefficient. If you want to keep a large animal like a cow, you are going to need a lot of land. In my debate with Milkjar's twin brother a few weeks back, I brought up some examples. I'll have the information down in the description as well. It goes through the specifics of how much land you need, but you need several acres of land if you want to pasture raise a cow. Most people don't have that kind of land. I don't have that kind of land. Even if you want to keep smaller animals like chickens, if again you look at the system as your yard, think of what people feed chickens. You can't just pasture raise chickens with no input. And this is another distortion that even people like Joel Salatin or other people that relate to those kind of guys, they will try and make it seem like, oh, they're just going around and eating the bugs and whatever. You need a lot of land to keep a lot of chickens. Now, one or two you might be able to get away with on a really small plot of land, but how many people are eating one or two a year or whatever? People are eating an insane amount of animal products, and you need an insane amount of land to do that.
So what most people end up doing if they do keep backyard chickens or ducks is they actually get feed at the store. They order corn, they order, you know, other types of grain or whatever they feed, you know, the birds. So they're not really doing a sustainable, you know, animal agriculture there, because what they're doing is they're taking the output from another area and bringing it to their area. If you had to grow all your own corn and dry it and, you know, grind it down and give that to the birds that you're keeping, you would really see like, holy cow, I need tons and tons of space to grow that much corn. You could just be eating that corn yourself. You would get way more calories from the same amount of land than you would from just keeping the ducks. Now you can say, okay, you need the manure from the animals. Okay, but you could be using your own manure. You could be using humanure, which is the human manure, or you could be doing what I suggest, which is the wood chips or the leaves. You could be collecting those from the, you know, from the neighbors that are not hip yet to the idea that they should be keeping that because it's a valuable resource. I think long term the solution that people just don't want to hear, because it kind of comes with some inconvenient things to do, is, you know, you have to return to small scale kind of solutions. If people grew more of their own food, I'm convinced that they would see the kind of illogical, inefficient, you know, kind of nature of animal agriculture and especially factory farming. And the other thing is that the cost would be more truly, you know, visible to people, and they would really be forced to, you know, kind of think twice about what they're doing. So, yeah, I think I've made most of the points that I wanted to cover here, and yeah, I hope you guys, you know, consider this the next time you're, you know, either if you're a vegan, if you're coming into contact with people like from the, you know, paleo and grass-fed, whatever meat kind of side of things, and they're trying to argue with them, you know, show them this video and see what they think. And if you are, you know, one of these proponents, I would say, you know, show me the proof. You know, do your own backyard. Show me how many animals you're able to sustain, you know, like from that little area, and how much you could be doing if you were just doing plants only.
I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something from it. If you did, give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to share it with a friend. I just wanted to close with some shots of the springtime bloom here. So you can see our plum trees over here, which I pruned before and showed you guys in another video. They are flowering super nicely right now. I've already missed some of the flowers. They were covered even in more flowers than that. And they're looking great. I'm hoping to get some plums this year. And in the neighbor's yard you can see some nice you know, blooming fruit trees there. And our mulberry tree is finally starting to bloom here as well. So hopefully we'll get some fruit off of this. And yeah, I'll keep you guys posted. Hope you enjoyed it. Stick around. See you in the next one. Bye.